Well, hello there, and welcome to the Weekend Update. I'm Jim Harrington.
And I am Bill Knight. Good morning, sir.
You're on the road again, huh? Traveling around. You're like Charles Kuralt. Remember Charles Kuralt?
Yeah, out of all the broadcasters, I always liked him. He did that Sunday morning thing, too, right?
He did, but for a while he was noted for traveling around the country doing reports from all these little neighborhoods. And from what I understand, you're traveling in the Northeast and seeing some down-home people up in Maine, which is kind of nice.
Doing my New England. Well, this is a tradition. I come up here twice, maybe three times a year, and just to let a cat out of the bag. I mean, the big plans today is a little bit rainy, but probably going to go out on the finest kind, which is a boat. There's actually, I think, three of them.
Yeah, I think, one of them sank last week, I think. Yeah, go ahead. You were saying? I'm just kidding.
I know, no. Yeah. They pulled it up, and they said, could you go take her on another test run?
We can give you a sail on this week's boat ride, yes.
Well, speaking of boats, there was a guy, I forget where it was. I don't have the device in front of me to say, but I think it was Norwegian. He was a Norwegian guy. Anyway, he lived by the water, and his house is right there close to the shore. And he woke up to the sound of a crash of a big cargo ship that ran aground just feet away from his bedroom window.
Wow.
Imagine waking up to that. It's like, what?
Honey, there's somebody here to see us.
Yeah, it's like, I'd be going, no.
I would have yelled, this is a no parking area, please, but pull that thing out of here.
Really, it's a no shipping zone. Get it out of here.
Hey, Saturdays we kind of let our hair hang down a bit. I say that with a smile on my face because we're using that in the loosest of ways, letting our hair hang down. But
you saying I got no hair?
Yeah, well, I have one. Anyway, this
Good
morning I was in bed last night thinking, I'm gonna try something, an experiment with AI, similar to what we did last week on a different service. Last week we did an experiment using Grok, and last night I was lying in bed thinking, I'm going to try to do something with ChatGPT and see whether it has the same kind of ability that Grok has.
Mm-hmm.
So I posed a question. I'll read the question to you. Here it is. Assuming that there is a deep state in our country, what steps would the current administration do to expose and stop them?
All right.
That was the question. And ChatGPT gave me an answer in under a minute. I would say under 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Here's how it answered. It said, that's definitely a provocative and interesting scenario. If we assume the existence of a deep state, a hidden network of unelected officials or influential entities acting independently of democratic oversight, and that the current administration wants to expose and stop it, the steps might look something like this. And these are the steps that AI put together in 30 seconds. Gather intelligence internally. Audit federal agencies. Launch discrete internal audits or reviews of key agencies, CIA, FBI, NSA, DOJ, etc. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, it sounds like what's going on now.
Yeah, whistleblower protection. Strengthen protections to encourage insiders to come forward. We haven't heard much about that, but I'm going to get to a story in a second which may indicate that that's happening behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Create a parallel task force. Assemble a trusted team, possible outside traditional channels, to investigate covert operations or hidden agendas. That was all under Part 1. Part 2, Bill.
All right.
Unless you want to stop down and discuss. I'll read you the whole thing. It's not terribly long.
This is exactly what's going on, and this is exactly what they're rebelling against because, you've got a cornered rat.
Yeah.
And uh, if you think this weekend is a weekend where you sit there and you're going to get away with having just a good time,
Yeah.
we'll talk about that in a few because there's some activity planned for the weekend. We'll talk
Oh,
about
I,
that.
I know. I know. All right. Part two. That was the first part, which is
Hmm.
interesting by itself. Part two. Control the flow of information. Secure communication. Prevent internal leaks by switching to secure, vetted communication channels. I guess no more signal, huh?
Mm.
Limit access. Restrict access to sensitive data to a smaller, more loyal group. Yesterday, they got rid of 100 National Security Agency personnel. Last night.
Immediately.
Yep.
Immediately. They had like, what, an hour to get the hell out of here.
Get your stuff, get going. That was yesterday. Investigate media ties. Look into possible manipulation of the press or social media by entrenched actors. Have they done that? Absolutely.
Hmm.
That was part two. Part three. Expose publicly without panic. Expose publicly, and then in parentheses, without panic. Trump is doing this. He did it the other day with that South African president. Everyone's saying, my God, he was doing diplomacy in front of the public. He did it with Zelensky. Everyone said, oh, he embarrassed. No, he was exposing Zelensky in front of the world, publicly, without panic. It was in the Oval Office. Everybody was protected.
Hmm.
All right, here's number three continued. Declassified documents. Selectively released documents showing illegal or unconstitutional behavior. Congressional hearings. Use public hearings to showcase evidence and force accountability. Boy, that's happening now. We just heard about the brand new hearings coming up with James Comer. Presidential addresses speak directly to the public about transparency, corruption, and reform. Trump does that all the time. Drives them nuts. He's talking directly to the people all the time. He's not allowing them to create a story. He's out there correcting them when they're making mistakes to their chagrin. Number four, legal and structural action. Prosecutions bring charges where criminal activity is proven. Restructure agencies, break up and reform agencies known to be incompetent. Does Doge strike a bell, huh? Isn't that what Doge is doing? Personnel changes. Fire or reassign officials involved in shadowy operations. We just mentioned the 100 that were let go yesterday. I'm not done, my friend. I have more here. I know this is dragging on a bit. I apologize, but this is interesting stuff, Bill.
No. I'll give you a little secret. While you were doing all of that, because I'm in a remote location, but
Yeah.
we use the internet, and I'm not
Well,
using my house internet. I'm using actually the Verizon
yeah.
thing. You've been frozen for most of the time to where I haven't heard a darn thing, but I know what the agenda is, and I have another idea down the road. We can't do it live
Yeah.
because
Well,
but
I'm going to send you, if you want to see the document, I'll send it to you as a.
send it to me because I have another document that I might do it tonight when after the end of the day. I
Well,
might log in to the computer at home and see.
it says civic education, promote public understanding of constitutional governance versus clandestine power. New oversight bodies create independent watchdogs or bipartisan commissions with real authority. And then they put it as a bonus, likely challenges. Media backlash. Major media might dismiss or obscure the story. Isn't that what they're trying to do all the time?
Exactly what
Yeah.
they're doing.
Internal sabotage. Elements within the government could obstruct efforts. I'm sure that's happening right now as we speak.
Would that be judges, federal judges?
Doesn't that sound? Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
Public disbelief. Many citizens may dismiss it as conspiracy theory without ironclad proof. And it goes on, and I can read It talks about main characters. This was done, by the way, again, in 30 seconds.
Mhm.
It was like it had it all written and it was waiting for me to ask the question. It was that fast. And I could read for another 10 or 15 minutes, and I'm not going to do that. But I will send you, Bill, later on after the show,
Sure.
a paper copy so you can see it. It'll be in your email. I think it's interesting, though. It talks about all the steps, and the steps that are happening are parallel to what we're seeing going on in Washington right now. Gather intelligence, control the flow of information, legal and structural action. These are all things that are happening right now. Yesterday, John Roberts, the Supreme Court Justice, he put a hold. What happened was U.S. Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts on Friday temporarily halted orders requiring DOJ to comply with Freedom of Information Act requests and other discovery. It's like all of a sudden Roberts gets it, I think, that maybe something else is going on here, and he had better get in line. Did you hear what Hillary did yesterday, Bill?
Well, that's what I was going to talk about. She sat there and came out and said, this weekend is a weekend for liberals to ruin Memorial Day celebrations, gatherings, whatever. You're going to a barbecue, you've got to sit there and bash Trump to your friends, your neighbors, anybody that you're around, you bash Trump. But it's not just Trump, it's Republicans. And Republicans bad. They nasty. If they're conservative, they're bad. They're nasty. And going back to your story, and I apologize, the internet is dropping in and out, and it's not that I got bad service. I'm actually using the Verizon network, so I'll give them credit for it. But either way, with everything that's going on, you got to look back to say you just got that agenda, and it parallels what they're doing in the government. Who would be a computer tech kind of guru that's
I know where you
in the office right now that could have?
I thought about this last night. Exactly right. I know where you're going.
Yeah.
Dare I say one Mr. Elon Musk?
Now, my counter question would be, I'll just spill the beans and I'll do it later. If I were the other side going, how in the hell do they know? How do we counter what they're doing?
They
And
have
put
to
that
try to
question
figure out. That would be a question you could ask
Or
your AI. How
Yeah,
would they try to block? And I think what we may be seeing right now is a battle of dueling AI.
yeah, we're having a high-tech political battle,
And
which is
I think that with every step, I think they re-ask a question.
So how does that apply to you, Jim, and me? Well, it means that we are on a chessboard and we're the pawns
Yep, that's true.
in this political game of life. We're
Yes.
pawns between good and evil, and who's to decide? I'm just being, weird here. What's good or what's bad? And now I believe we're on the good side here, and if you're battling against the deep state, you are on the good side
Hey,
because
listen,
you got a battle plan.
speaking of being on the good side, we have to take a pause here just to ask our dear friends who are listening right now to take a moment and like and share our show. Interesting conversation this morning. We put a question to AI, specifically to ChatGPT, a different AI platform than we did last week. Last week we used Grok. And we asked the question, and I'll read the question again so for people who were half listening. Assuming that there's a deep state in our country, what steps would the current administration do to expose and stop them? That was the question, and I read to you a few of the steps. It actually was, the response was a 4-page detailed response. I only gave you thumbnails of what the answers were. And by the way, the scary part about it, it blows my mind. It was 30 seconds I got that. 30 seconds. The printer took long to print the thing.
Yeah, it
Then,
takes you longer to get the stuff,
yeah,
seeded out to you than it did to generate it.
yes, exactly. I mean, it is mind boggling. And this is the world that we're living in right now. And Bill and I, just before the break, we said, hey, we're living in a battle of AIs.
Hmm.
And I think Trump has gone into it with a plan. He probably sat down long ago with the AI experts, maybe even Elon Musk, who knows, and maybe asked him, all right, how do we beat this? Maybe he asked a very similar question to the question that I asked. Assuming there's a deep state, how do we expose him and get rid of him, defeat him?
I think everyone, even the liberals, know there's a deep state, but they probably think that we're the deep state. But when you ask for the plan and then you see what the solution is to fight the
Well,
plan,
how would they think we're
not
the deep state? Excuse me, I didn't mean it, but how would they think we're a deep state is in the shadows. A deep
yes,
state is
but the
hidden. We're not.
but by asking the two questions, we've asked one question. You define, the good guys from the bad guys, and we see what team is taking up the position of okay, what measures do we do to get these people rooted out? The other side will be what measures they do to defend themselves,
Oh,
and we're already
you're saying the AI sees us as you're saying we set up the premise going into the questioning, and the
Mhm.
AI approaches it from our point of view. And when the other guys put the
You
question out
asked a
there,
question.
right?
You asked a question. You know, what steps would the deep state do? All right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we know that from what it laid out, that's not a damn thing that the Republicans are doing. But when you look at how the media's come out and you see all these negative stories, one of which I was going to talk about, when you see everything that's going on,
Mm-hmm.
then you got to sit there and go, okay, so the guys that aren't doing this deep state plan, they're the good guys. Well, then that would mean those are the conservatives. Sorry, Democrats, but you're in a party that has been infiltrated
Oh,
and
absolutely.
polluted and taken over. I mean, look at what's the guy, the DNC vice. Anyway, I mean,
Who?
he's
Oh,
saying that
David Huff or
Hogue,
Hogue or whatever. Yeah,
yeah. He sat there and said, Jasmine Crockett, that is the kind of leader the Democrat needs now.
I heard him say it. Unbelievable. The guy is
What?
he is so incompetent. He's a kid. It's like having a junior in college
Yeah.
be the vice chairman of the Democratic Party. This is the problem you guys have. You have no bench, and you have no platform right now, and none in the foreseeable future, Bill.
That's true. And you know what? The platform that they have and you've got people that they they want to be led. They don't want to sit there and make a decision for themselves. And I think that society has been trained that way. You probably learned that in school,
Yeah,
I don't know, but there there are leaders and there are followers. And there are a lot of just people that are being pulled along by their nose or the little leash, the collar around their neck and the leash to it. I'm sorry, I'm not one of those people,
yeah. Well,
but a lot of Democrats are. And I don't mean to say that in a mean or harsh way. Getting back to the Hillary thing, where she's calling out everyone and saying, "Yeah, we got to attack health care and SNAP and uh, the child credit, the tax credit, and uh, what she's calling AI deep fakes." Well, okay, so you're saying that it is the right that's using the deep fakes, but the deep fakes are here to attack the right, not the left. So what are you talking about, Hillary? I mean, this
you know,
is really crazy what's going on.
what would be interesting? It would be interesting to see if we posed the same question, exact same question to Grok. We know that I'm going to send you the response from
Actually,
ChatGPT.
now I'll be honest. I say I use Grok. I don't. It's actually I use the the experimental version that's beyond Grok. That's what I'm licensed to use, and
Hmm.
that's what I use. And so anything Grok does, it does better and more. So
So you're saying it's grok on steroids? I mean,
yeah, you might go on the internet and say, oh yeah, it's Grok beta. Yeah, it's a little bit beyond that, but either way, it.
I
Look,
I just sent you, by the
AI.
way, I just forwarded the ChatGPT response to your email. This is a little behind the scenes, but so you can check it when you get a chance. It'll be there. Um, it's interesting how when I read this, it blew my mind. It was like step by step. It was instructions as to how to discover the deep state, expose the deep state, and get rid of the deep state. The key points that I read to you that really struck
Mhm.
me were control the flow of information. Boy,
Yeah, it's happening.
that's happening right now. It says gather intelligence internally. Everybody on the outside was looking and saying, "Boy, this is taking forever." We voted them into office, and we thought there'd be some immediate changes. I still wonder what's going on with the FBI and Dan Bongino and Cash Patel, because they are giving us a response that's completely different than what we expected from both of those guys. But having looked at this, where it says gather intelligence internally, maybe
Mhm.
that's because they can't talk about anything right now. I mean, they literally can't talk about the truthful things that are happening because there's something going on behind the scenes that, if they were to speak out the truth, would expose the operation and ruin the chances of getting those people out of their jobs. If you know what I
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah, let me break it down into maybe, I hope this is a good analogy, but imagine, like, let's say it was Christmas and there was a model that you wanted. You like to build models, and it was this big ship that you wanted to build. And you got that model. The kid in you wants it to be put together right away and ready to go. But you got to follow the instructions and go by the plan, because it has a sequence of events, of things that you've got to put together first. If you don't, you've pretty much destroyed everything, because you'll find out you glued pieces together that are going to prevent you from building this thing correctly, and it's going to end up in the trash. That being said, you have a plan that is specific in nature, that has very intricate precision steps that you have to take to get to the Holy Grail, and that is to get to the root of the problem. You've got to follow the steps.
Do you want
And
to
if they
know?
don't do it,
Do you want to know what's really scary?
then we're living through it.
Oh, I know. That's true.
That's the scary thing, folks.
No, but what's really scary is I haven't used Grok or any of these other AIs, but I've used ChatGPT. I subscribed to it for a while, and because I wanted to see how it would work. I like to write fiction. I like to write screenplays and books and things like that. So I took some of my older stories that I had written and put it into ChatGPT to see whether it could give me an analysis or suggestions as to how to improve the story. It gave me some decent ones. It wasn't perfect, by the way. It was not perfect. People say, "Oh, nah." You could tell that at points it got confused. That's okay. But I was under the impression when you stopped subscribing to it that it forgot about who you were.
No.
It forgets you, right? I stopped using it 2 months ago. I stopped subscribing. You can quit at any time, no problem, not a big deal. So I went back this morning with that question, and it remembered who I am. It remembered that I write. It remembered that it would make a great book, wouldn't it? And would you like to see it in a screenplay form? Suggestions. I thought, this thing doesn't forget at all. It knows who I am. 2 months ago, I
Now,
stopped. I mean, I literally haven't touched it in 8 weeks. And yet I came back to it, and it was like I had used it 10 minutes ago.
yeah. Now, one of the things I will have to tell you that you have to do with AI, because it does remember it, and they said it doesn't, but it does.
Right.
I found that out a long time ago. I actually, when I do a project, I say, put this in a folder. And it goes, okay, I've secured it to a folder now, and it has a folder. So I can go back and relog in, and it goes, okay, you know, good morning, Bill. Good afternoon, Bill. What do you want to do today? And I'll tell it. But the one thing that I also have to let it know, because it will know, like I've got multiple things that I do. Some of them have nothing to do with what we're doing right now. And all of, if I don't explain to it, it has nothing to do with any of these other projects. Yeah, you know, it will start weaving in different bits and pieces from everything because it knows you. So it knows what you're interested in, and it's like a dog, you know, a little puppy that you're sitting there trying to train, and you're training it. So you've got to let it know that no, 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 this is a whole new project. It's a one-off project. Here's what I want you to do. And then it goes, okay, gotcha. I know what you want, you know, and it
Yeah.
clears the deck.
What I thought was interesting, though, because of the question that I asked, it would, by the way, make an interesting book. By the way, it would make an interesting movie. It remembered that I write those kind of stories. 2 months later, when it was
Mhm.
supposed to have forgotten who you were, I thought
Now,
I mean I could have been walking away forever and never gone back to it, but I went back to it this morning just to see whether it would had an answer for me, and it remembered who I was, which is kind of
mhm.
scary.
All right. Well, yeah, it is. And, you know, I'm thinking of, and I'm trying to find it here. It was a story on Biden. Oh, yeah. Uh, well, no, I say, oh,
Well,
yeah. But either way,
My question is, what does it know about you and I
well,
already?
that's what I was getting to because apparently the Biden administration, the regime was, because AI was around then, uh, they did an edict where they declared people that were anti-vaxxers against COVID-19. You know, those people were domestic terrorists. So that means they were probably, excuse me, tracking your communication via the internet and whatnot, storing it in AI. And that means they probably have a file on you right now
Well,
somewhere tucked away
well,
in a computer.
I was
Knows who
thinking
you are and where you are.
last night that you and I have done over 1,000 of these episodes, 1,000 of these shows,
Right.
and AI probably has heard every word of it, and probably come to assumptions and drawn conclusions on who we are based upon our podcast. Anybody who does a podcast,
Hmm.
anybody who's a little more open about who they are, is probably known to AI.
Yeah, and it's you know, look at this like a TV series, like an old series. I don't know. Get smart. You've got control. You've got chaos. Now, I hate to say this. I'm not trying to label it, but we'll just say call it what it is. Chaos would be the Democrats, and not even Democrats. It would be the deep state. You know, control is common sense, conservative people of moderate or conservative value. And that's what we've got going on with that. But they both have AI capabilities. And whoever's in control, I don't know that control has something on every single buddy, but I'm pretty damn sure that
Well,
chaos would because that's the way they
I'll
operate.
tell you, it probably has it on you and me. It probably knows every word of everything that we've ever said on our podcast. Hey, let's pause for a second. Remind everybody it would be a great opportunity right now to like and share our show. So it's interesting. I can't get over what Hillary Clinton did. Talk about
Yeah.
evil. It says Hillary Clinton calls on liberals to ruin Memorial Day gatherings by bashing Trump to friends, neighbors,
Yes.
cookout attendees. This is amazing. This is pure evil. And I was thinking, why would she do this? Why would she not come out and say, "Hey, enjoy the weekend. Remember what it's for,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
memorialize the people who sacrificed everything for this country"?
Yeah.
No.
Well, that's what it's about. But no, no, no. And she went further, which makes me wonder, was she actually instructing somebody to do something? Because I'm giving you a mission.
Well, yeah, I do think that, and I think here's what I also think. I think that she is right now. She's petrified because she has to
She's
feel,
part of the deep state.
yes, and she has to feel that this administration is at her back door right now.
Oh,
Right
too bad,
now.
Hillary.
She said,
You know?
rather than honoring the military men and women who gave their lives defending their fellow Americans' rights to live in freedom, two-time failed Democratic Party presidential candidate Hillary Clinton is calling on her supporters to bash President Trump and his one big beautiful bill that passed the House this week when they get together with friends and neighbors at Memorial Day gatherings this weekend. I mean, instead of going there and literally putting politics aside and enjoying your camaraderie and friendships and the things that we share, like the fact that we live in a great country together, no matter what our political beliefs are, she would rather you go to these functions, put all that aside, and become attack dogs, spoil the event, ruin it for people. This is an evil, evil woman. I'm sorry. No other way to describe her. Juanita Broderick said, and this is, again, she was one of Bill Clinton's alleged rape victims. She said, "Thank the Lord this miserable, evil old hag will never be president." That's what she wrote when she read that article from those instructions, as you would say, Bill, from Hillary Clinton.
If everybody that is hearing this podcast would just send that same, message to her, let her get it 1,000 times over. Because when she did this, she turned off comments. She doesn't want any comments. She doesn't want to answer to it. But there is a way to flood her email, flood her whatever that she's got, out there. Post messages. Take a page from them this one time only, because she's an evil woman.
Take her message
on you.
Take her message, repost it, and put your comments there. Eventually, she'll see it, whether she likes it or not. She is really and truly evil, and I do think, Bill, she's petrified because whether we know it or not, Trump is getting closer and closer every day. Doge is still very, very active. Just because Elon Musk isn't working day to day in Doge, he has the right people doing the job right now. And
he didn't say he was stepping away from it, and he didn't say he was stepping down. He was going to spend a little more time with his other businesses. But, Trump and he are a lot alike in the ways that they don't require a lot of sleep.
no.
So, their brain is always turning. So how do you know that Elon doesn't sit down and go, well, I just had breakfast. It's 7 a.m. I'm going to work on Tesla for an hour and a half. And then I'm going to work on Doge for the next 3 hours, and he does his projects. He works because his mind is constantly going, that.
Yeah. It is interesting to see where we. By the way, I wanted to tell everybody before I forget. My mind's racing this morning. I should finish sentences, but I'm not because I'm just caught up in
You're
this.
Excited. You're excited in it. Yeah, that's a good thing.
I think what you can do yourself is if you have access to AI, maybe it's Copilot, maybe it's Grok, maybe it's ChatGPT, ask the same question yourself. Do it yourself. The question, again, assuming that there is a deep state in our country, what steps would the current administration do to expose and stop them? Very simple. That's the question. You can ask it yourself. You'll see whether you get the same response that I got. That would be interesting. I wonder if it gives different responses to different people based upon how it interprets the political views of those people.
Maybe, maybe not. I mean, that would be wrong, but it could, something like that for us.
Yeah.
I believe that answer, but
right now they're panicking in some of these higher institutions of learning, like Harvard. Harvard has got its tail in a meat grinder right now. The government is closing down a lot of different things that it's relied on. They are trying to sound like, oh, it doesn't affect us. We have we have enough money. We can handle it. We're not in a problem. Bill Ackerman is a billionaire,
Mhm.
very, very wealthy guy. He was on. He was in front of a group talking about how wealthy Harvard really is. All of these donations, endowments that have been pledged to Harvard, are they as substantive as they pretend that they are? I mean, is it real money? Is it actual money they can turn to and use, or is it this nebulous kind of vapor out there that people have promised, but there's no real commitment behind it? Ackerman,
Mhm.
a billionaire investor who knows money and knows Harvard, he said this.
The problem of the Harvards of the world is people think a $53 billion endowment, I don't want to use an untoward expression, it's sort of FU money, and it creates the opportunity for university independence, but it's not actually the case. Yesterday, I read the bond prospectus for Harvard's taxable $750 million bond issuance, and a few interesting facts. So number one, Harvard has a stated $53 billion endowment, of which 80 to 85% of the assets are in private equity, real estate, and venture capital. Yale's marketing a $6 billion slice of their private equity exposure, and I guarantee you that that's the carrying value. I guarantee you that the transaction price is going to be a meaningful reduction from that number, which should cause, appropriately from an accounting perspective, Yale to have to remark their entire portfolio, and it should cause Harvard to do the same thing. Harvard's marketing a $1 billion slice of their portfolio. So one thing I believe is that the private equity portfolios, the real estate portfolios, the venture capital portfolios are mismarked. And
what's meaningful?
I would say 40% discount.
40%.
Yeah. First of all, every institution is completely full up with private equity. No one wants incremental exposure to private equity. So the next buyer cost of capital is meaningfully higher. My guess is Yale chooses not to transact, and Harvard may do the same because they don't want to report the figure. But let's just talk about, so one, the assets are invested in illiquid funds where they can't get liquidity other than by doing a secondary transaction. And the scale of these secondary transactions, there isn't enough capital interested in buying them, absent massive discounts. But it tells you what the concerns are. You say, well, how could Harvard have a problem? One, they have $53 billion endowment, which is mismarked. By the way, the marks are basically, the venture capital marks are as of the last round, which were done in probably 2021 for many of these businesses. The real estate marks are, were done before the Fed started kind of raising interest rates. And, really the same, for private equity. So how has Harvard been meeting its obligations? They've been issuing debt. What's not talked about when you mention the $53 billion endowment is Harvard has $7.9 billion worth of debt. The most recent issuance was for a AAA rated institution, was in the 5% range. I mean, this is not a kind of a low sort of coupon. Now imagine you're a donor who's being cultivated by Harvard to give money. Well, where's your money going? It goes to Harvard, and it goes out the door to pay interest expense to bondholders. My experience with charity or nonprofits that have large amounts of debt, it's a death spiral because the donor doesn't want to give money that they want to give to a project they don't want to give to kind of pay interest expense. Harvard relies on the federal government, on the alums donations, and a very small liquidity pool to meet their kind of ongoing obligations, and a draw from the endowment. And each of these has been meaningfully impaired. Donors are not excited to give money to the university, and they're going to be less excited once they understand what's the financial picture. The tax exemption is at risk, which means that tax exemption benefits the institution because they get they don't have to pay taxes. But I would say more significantly, the donor gets the benefit of a meaningful tax deduction in America when we give to these institutions. That goes away. I mean, it's a disaster. So they're under, I would say, quite severe financial pressure.
So what's interesting about what he just said, I think, is that we think when we hear Harvard has a $53 billion endowment, you think that it's like money in the bank. You think it's like sitting there waiting to be drawn upon at any time. When in reality, from what I understand from what Bill Ackerman just said, it's it's not all theirs. A lot of it is it has to be. There are fees that have to be paid to different things. It's in real estate. It's in investments. A lot of it is money that has been pledged that may be reduced because all of a sudden the donors realize that Harvard is an advocate to just one party. It's become a political advocate to just one party, which may not coincide with the party affiliation of the donor. When the donor starts to realize, let's say it's a rich Republican donor who's been giving money to his alma mater, which is Harvard, and they suddenly, and they're busy doing their deals and going on with their life, and they pause for a second and wait a second. What's Harvard doing on TV with all of this nonsense? They seem to be promoting all of this nonsense, this socialism. All of a sudden, that donor says, "No, I'm gonna pull my money back." Harvard is in a very critical state because at the very end, you heard him say, Harvard relies on the federal government to do its day-to-day business. It relies on the money it gets from the government to pay salaries and the immediate needs that a school would have. And when Trump says, okay, you guys are doing this, okay, we're going to pull our funding, that has a much bigger effect than most of us out here realize. They will throw around, well, don't worry, Harvard still has $53 billion in endowments, but it ain't all cash. It ain't all available. Right. It's not all there.
And may never be there.
No, it may not. He said 40% of it, up to 40% of it may be fees and stuff like that. Out of the $53 billion, 40% may not actually be money that Harvard has access to.
Well, there's probably another reason, well, I'm going to pledge so much money to Harvard, but it's like you said, it's not really there and everything. Do I get a tax credit for that?
Well, probably when you pledge it, you do. Probably if you pledge the money, you do. But I think the people who pledge the money can also withdraw their pledges. Yeah, right. They may have to pay taxes down the road, but when you're making that much money, you can pay the taxes.
So they're sheltering, they're sheltering money from taxes for the time being.
Yeah. Hey, we mentioned this
so much.
We mentioned this in passing, Bill, early on, but I wanted to read it in a little more detail. More than 100 National Security Council staffers were placed on leave Friday, according to CNN. The Trump administration is currently overhauling the National Security Advisor Team. The National Security Council staffers were given less than an hour to clear out their desk. That is amazing. That says to me they didn't want them to have time to think about this and maybe plan some kind of a escape scheme, if you know what I mean. Get your stuff, get out of here.
When you're told to get out the door, don't let the doorknob hit you. Well, I've been through, firings before. Yeah, I've been fired before, not for anything I did wrong. It's just change your regime, and all of a sudden they're just they label you a bad guy. And
I think this is a little different, Bill. I think
it's a little deeper. Yes, I know.
Yeah.
Because they don't want them to go into their computers and take stuff. They don't want them to rifle through things and destroy stuff.
Right.
They just want them gone.
Right.
Immediately, so that they can't cover their tracks or alert anyone. The alert came when they're out the door. But did you destroy the files? Did you get this? No, I didn't.
Well, what I found interesting, Bill, this week was I heard Marco Rubio say in front of a hearing that he's not about to let any judge interfere with his obligation as Secretary of State with regard to how he does his work. Now, that was the first direct challenge that I heard from our administration to this judicial lawfare that we've seen over the last 6 weeks or so, 2 months. It was finally somebody saying, "Hey, you pound tar, pal. You're not stopping us. What we are doing. You can get out of the way or get hit by the bus. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. 100 staffers, and the media's not really talking about it. You know what they're talking about right now today on most of the channels? The Indy 500. The Indy 500. Everybody's talking about the race in Indy. Another distraction, by the way. In the meantime,
Well, it
there's
is today, so.
Yeah. Well, is it today or is it tomorrow? It's tomorrow, I think, isn't it?
No, yeah, it's tomorrow. It's tomorrow, right. I was thinking today is Sunday. No, it's tomorrow. Tomorrow, I think it cranks up at noon.
Yeah.
But does the Indy 500, now it's funny, it used to be a big thing, but I don't know that it's as big as it was.
Well, I just don't think people. Well, here's the difference. When we were kids, Bill, you had 3 networks. And,
yeah, that's all there was.
Yeah, and so when they did the Indy 500 on television on, I think it was ABC or whatever, back in the day, it was a big deal. And everybody watched it. But now, every weekend on some sports channel, there's a race somewhere. And I think those other races have watered things down a bit. I mean, last week we had, Kentucky Derby? Or a couple of weeks ago, the Kentucky Derby race.
Yeah, about 3 weeks ago. Yeah.
They kind of run together. Tomorrow they'll have the Indy 500. That'll be great. And I'm sure they'll have a lot of people watching, but I don't think it has the appeal that it used to have. I could be wrong. Maybe it's just me, but people have other things to do.
Well, there's a lot of races, but they're regionalized now, and you got all that NASCAR stuff and everything all around, and nice tracks and everything, but and I'm not going to say what I think it really is, but people that want to watch, sit there, drink their beer, eat their hot dog, and watch the cars go round and around the track. Good for them.
Yep.
Hey, you know what? Speaking of good for them, what's good for us is that we take a pause for the cause. So we do ask you to like and share our show. That's what we like.
So it's the weekend update program. We always promise that we'll run a little short, and I think that because you are on the road and traveling, we should stay closer to that promise this time around. Usually we break it. Usually we go over an hour, but is there anything you're looking at, Bill, over the weekend that we should be concerned with? I do think that AI experiment, folks, I think maybe we should stick it on our website. I know you can't do it when you're on the road, or maybe you can.
Who says I can't?
If you can, if you get the time, and I sent you the email.
It may be this evening. It'll be this evening that I do it. But when I'm relaxing, got the slippers on, going, it was a good day. Then that's when I'll fire up the laptop and I'll log into the back office and take that, and should be a simple post and everything, and probably find a picture to go with the article just to dress it up on the jimandbill.com. You'll see stories there.
You definitely want to read this, folks. Again, when you read it, remember I got it in 30 seconds or less. I mean, it was like it was waiting for me to ask the question. Unbelievable. With that, my friend, I think we can put a fork in this one. You said we're to watch out for. I think we're going to have something happen over the weekend, by the way.
Hillary did a call to action there, and I think you got to watch out for that. Comey, they buried that story, but he's got to keep his mouth shut because all these distractions. But he reared his head again. Well, it was really my wife that made that post. Now, why is he keeping it in the news when, you know what it was? You know that he knew everything, what he was doing. And they're trying to bury it with distractions, but he keeps rearing his head, saying stupid stuff.
Well,
so
he wants
up with that.
I think he wants to promote his book. There must be a lot of money in it for him, and so
that could be.
Yeah, you know what else happened yesterday, and no one's talking about this either.
What's that?
Big deal. Yesterday, there was a deal that was consummated between U.S. Steel and Nippon Steel of Japan, where they keep the ownership in this country. They keep the ownership and the manufacturing in our country. That was the big drawback that that was a stumbling block for this administration. But they got the deal done. It was a big deal. And next, I believe, Friday, the 30th of May, Trump is coming to Pittsburgh to do he calls it a massive rally in support of the New Deal and a celebration of sorts for the fact that steel is alive and well and coming back to Pittsburgh, which I thought was interesting.
It is. The one thing I'll tell you to do, pray for our Trump, pray for our leaders, because with the heat being turned up, they're all targets. And you know what? I hate to say this, but, even with that Tulsi Gabbard story, I didn't mention her, but I did mention the story about them bringing out the files that showed that we were all, you, me, anybody listening, especially if you were anti-COVID-19, the vax, you are a domestic terrorist.
Yeah.
So this is a weekend of targets. Thank you, Hillary, for that.
Yeah.
And this should be about the people that died for our privileges. And I don't think they died for the privilege of you raising hell because you're having a hissy fit, but
when I heard he was coming to Pittsburgh, I got nervous, actually.
Yeah.
I would prefer him just to stay in the White House and stay safe.
I will say this for Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh's a Democratic town, but Butler's not. But I will say this for that area of Pennsylvania. They're not about what happened in Butler. That was a planned one-off for that area. They may try it again, but it's not indicative of the area.
Yeah, that's
true.
true.
There are good. The people there are good. And I think in most cases, the people are good, but they bring in these unknown assailants.
We still don't know what the story is with Thomas Matthew Crooks. We don't know what got him going the way he got going, and we don't know who backed him. Someone had to back him. Someone had to put some money behind the guy. He had 3 bank accounts offshore.
Mm-hmm.
What the heck was that all about? How many 20-year-old kids have 3 offshore bank accounts? We could go on.
Hey, you know what? I've never had one, and I don't have one now. Well, if I never had one, I obviously don't have one now. No, I've never had an offshore account.
Yeah,
why would I?
No, I mean, I'm with you. I have no idea what this guy's all about. He is as much of a mystery today as he was on the 14th of July of last year. No real answers have been given to us at all.
No.
And
they won't be.
The Bonginos of the world and the Cash Patels of the world, they kind of, and the Pam Bondis of the world kind of promised us a different situation if they got into office. Now they get into office and it's mum. It's quiet.
But if you go back to what we originally started the show with, maybe they can't at this time, because I always said that answer and the way Bongino did it, he really didn't believe what he was saying. Because I do listen to how people phrase things, do things. You get a pattern of how a person is. You're picking that up. My girlfriend's picked it up. She's going, since I've been around you, I actually understand how people, what they're really thinking when they say something.
There was, Bill, a reluctance. And he sounded really reluctant to say he committed suicide. It was like, I don't really want to say this, but I'm going to say it. It's like he was saying something that it was going against everything inside him to say.
Voice, facial mannerisms, you can see it all. If you get a pattern of what some people do normally and then what they're doing at a time, it's like a facial lie detector. It's just like whether you're left-handed or right-handed. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but basically, if you're talking to me and I see you kind of look to the left or see you look to the right, depending on your orientation, I'm sitting there going, you just lied. There's another lie.
I think you probably would find that like the FBI behavioral, what is it, man? There's a team that works using tools like...
I don't know what they call it.
Yeah,
they do that.
They use the tools that you're talking about.
Look, it's not 100%. It's not 100%, but it gives you a good idea.
Right. Hey, listen, I think we can put a fork in this one. It's been fun. It's been interesting. I hope that if you get a moment, check out our jimandbill.com website sometime tomorrow, because there's a possibility we'll have all that stuff that we were talking about
I'll
from
get it up there.
Yeah, from ChatGPT. It'll be there for you to look at and read for yourself, come to your own conclusion, maybe ask your AI the same question to see what kind of response you get. My friend, I'm done.
All right. There's only one thing left to do, and that is hasta la vista, baby. We're out of here.
This is CRN America.